Cats with Human Hands, a swan-dive into the uncanny valley, and the insult that was too much for Lindsay Lohan. These movie scenes were so bad that even the filmmakers wanted them gone. Filmmakers sometimes go back and fix things in movies decades after they're released. Take David Fincher's bizarre changes to Seven's 4K release, for example, or George Lucas doing all this.
Oscar.
Yes, I bet you have.
Rarely though are scenes altered while a movie is still in theaters, but that's just what happened with 2019's infamous Cats adaptation. Tom Hooper's directorial effort was already plagued by toxic buzz months prior to its release, before the dismal box office numbers began rolling in for the movie. And then things got worse. A day into Cats' theatrical run, Universal Pictures announced that a new version of the movie would be sent to theaters, one containing improved visual effects in several sequences. Alleged time constraints had apparently led the original prints to include a number of mistakes. One scene, for example, featured an otherwise catified Judi Dench with a human hand, complete with her own wedding ring. Sadly, updating Cats did nothing to improve either the movie's box office performance or critical reputation. Not even Rum Tum Tugger would have been curious enough to show up to see this train wreck, no matter how many tweaks the studio tried to make. You might have noticed that Lindsay Lohan makes a brief cameo during the debate sequence in 2024's Mean Girls remake. While she obviously gave her stamp of approval to the project, it seems Lohan was less than enthusiastic about one specific gag. During one montage sequence, Megan Thee Stallion announces that, in her own words, Y2K Firecrotch is back. This obviously didn't sit well with Lohan. The term had been used as a go-to insult against her 2 decades ago. Indeed, it's sometimes still invoked against the actor today. This line hurt Lohan so profoundly, in fact, that she brought it up in public. So when Mean Girls hit digital home media, the Firecrotch gag was cut out. Doing this meant cutting a few words from high-profile cameo performer Megan Thee Stallion, but also allowed the movie's creative team to respect the wishes of one of the original Mean Girls stars. The largely standalone Alien movie, Alien Romulus, introduces a very familiar face midway through its runtime.
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
During Romulus's theatrical run, the android Rook became a source of great controversy, both for resurrecting the long-deceased Ian Holm with CGI and the shoddy digital effects used to bring the character to life. Months later, for the movie's home video release, director Fede Alvarez revealed that he himself had been unimpressed with how Rook looked in the film's theatrical cut. He also pointed out that the crew hadn't been given enough time in post-production to get it right. Therefore, some extra tweaking was done for the digital and physical media launch of Romulus. The primary solution was removing or shortening shots that used a fully CGI version of Rook. Instead, the new release focused a little more on the practical puppet that had been used on set. This approach was meant to dilute the uncanny valley effect many people had suffered after seeing Rook show up on screen. Raja Gosnell's 2018 talking dog movie Show Dogs was a terrible movie, even by the director's usually shoddy standards, and it provoked a whole heap of outrage too. At one point in the movie, canine protagonist Max has to deal with having his genitals groped by a dog show judge. Other pooches give him advice on how to cope with this process, including going to a happy place as he's being fondled. It's a strange concept for a comedy sequence in any context, but many found the inclusion of this scene in a movie aimed at children to be truly abhorrent. In some quarters, Show Dogs was accused of normalizing the process of grooming children. The controversy became so explosive that the movie's distributor put out a statement apologizing for the sequence and promising that a new, revised cut of Show Dogs would be sent to theaters. Starting in its second weekend of release, audiences saw an altered version of the movie that tweaked the jokes about Max's plight. Goofy has appeared in many incarnations over the years, from his earliest days as a foil for Mickey and Donald to the more contemporary version that appeared in projects such as A Goofy Movie.
To the open road.
One thing people don't normally associate Goofy with, however, is promoting tobacco products. But that's just what he did in one of Disney's packaged features from the 1940s. One of the segments in 1942's Saludos Amigos is entitled La Gaucho Goofy, and it features Goofy as a cowboy who learns to become a gaucho in Argentina. On the surface, this sounds like a standard variation of the how-to shorts Goofy had already begun headlining in the early 1940s. But this release featured a segment in which Goofy brandished a cigarette and smoked it on screen. This prolonged depiction of tobacco consumption by one of Disney's major mascots was never going to fly in a modern context. So, for many home video incarnations of Saludos Amigos, this sequence was removed to maintain Goofy's family-friendly image. There's been a lot of hoo-ha in recent years about Disney highlighting or removing offensive sequences from some of its classic movies. 1977's The Rescuers, however, feels like it would be the last film in the Disney animation canon to drum up any kind of controversy. Sure, Walt Disney originally shelved the movie for being too political, but The Rescuers is often considered one of the more underrated and charming features to emerge from one of Disney's darkest ages. Still, when it first hit VHS, it made waves in all the wrong ways, at least in the eyes of Disney executives. Since VHS tapes allowed people to pause movies and absorb every detail in the background of any shot, viewers began to quickly realize that an animator had snuck a topless woman into the movie. Disney flew into a frenzy to correct this issue, which, since it was a blink-and-miss-it Easter egg, had gone unnoticed for decades. The tapes were immediately recalled, and a new print of The Rescuers was produced that removed the original version of the sequence in favor of a more family-friendly cut. With that, the reputation of The Rescuers was preserved, and Disney dodged yet another cartoon controversy.